closer to 20 than 40 years of age? All right, and who's closer to 60 than 40 years of age? Okay, all right, oh, it's an even split. So, some good news. I brought this in this morning because it's pretty relevant. It's called The 100-Year Life. Anyone pick this book up this year? Vix has. This is probably the most interesting career change book that I've come across. There are about 2,000 career change books out in the world. This is the most interesting one I've come across in the last few years. It basically says, in case you don't have the time to read it, that whether you're 20, 40 or 60, you're all going to have more than a 50% chance of living 10 years older than you did even a generation ago. So life expectancy is shooting up. So if you're 20 now, or in your 20s, more than 50% of you will live to 100. If you're 40 now, more than 50% of you will live to 95. And if you're 60 or thereabouts now, more than 50% of you will live to 90. So this idea of the three-stage career of education, of work, building a pension, of retirement is over, or it's finishing, it's coming to an end. And so this means we have to change the way we look at the world of work and the way that we look at our careers, because we are living longer and the world is changing. So this is what I wanted to talk a little bit about with you this morning. Some of the big picture stuff that we've seen at Escape City over the last 7 years. And Skye, when she's here, is going to talk about how you might use what we do and what we've learnt to apply to your career transition. I then have two escapees who've come from military careers and now doing something different. Paul and Vix are going to share their stories as well, so hopefully that will help connect and empathise with some of you. So this is the problem. I want to talk a bit about the problem. Obviously it's incredibly simplified, but a lot of people end up experiencing this, and then it's too late, and then they're like, oh, I wish I'd lived differently, or worked differently. So this is a question we're asking ourselves at Escape the City, is how do you build a fulfilling career? And the key word here is fulfilling. Because actually, what does that really mean? Is it just about income? Is it just about the people I work with? Is it just about the holidays that I have? Or is it about something else? Is it about something more? This image, some of you, well, no, we started at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. We didn't experience this morning. But a lot of people experience this on the Northern Line and other lines in the city every day. And it's not just the physical experience of being squashed up in the tube to go and get well paid somewhere. It's the actual, the mental experience of that, the emotional experience of that, and what it represents. And so when we're making choices about what we do next, we should be considering things like this. How do we want to travel to work? Who do we want to travel to work with? What does our day look like? Some of the stats behind the problem, we spend a lot of time working, a lot of time doing work. So it's important that we do what we want to be doing with our careers. But the problem with working too much is that some other things, we make sacrifices in our life. And relationships especially, which a lot more wise people than I would say are the key to happiness and a fulfilling life, suffer, especially the key ones in your life, the people who are closest to. So if you work too hard, you might get divorced. The problem is even more serious in Japan, where over 10,000 people a year die and commit suicide because of the pressure of modern work and the expectation on a successful career. And what that means in Japan is literally killing people. They have a word for it, karoshi. And obviously this is a tragedy, and they're trying to do something about it. But this is the extreme end of the problem that we're talking about. Now, in terms of do people like their jobs? Now, if you talk to your grandparents or your parents even, they may say work is not about, you're not supposed to like work, you're supposed to do work and then like life outside of work. It earns you the time outside to enjoy. But this is changing. More and more people are expecting that they should get fulfillment out of their work. And this survey is just one of many, but this was one of the broader ones where it said actually a very small percentage really enjoy their work. So here's an image I like, tells the story quite nicely. We're on this conveyor belt of life. We go through education, we get into a career, we start a family, and then we carry on and we fall into a pit at the end. Now, occasionally, and more often, as we're seeing, there are unexplained or unexpected system errors. And this is what we like to think we're exploring is the people who are having these unexpected, according to society, system errors, and they're escaping. They're doing something different. So the question is this. If that's the problem, the question is this. Why do we wake up? Why do you wake up in the morning? What are you going to do? Now, all of you have had remarkable careers to date in terms of your service, in terms of the amazing things that you've achieved and the teams and the people you've helped. But now you're looking at something different, something new. And this is a really important question. It's not like how much do I earn, but why do I do this? Why should I get up and do this? And coming back to Japanese, it's strange that they, considering the scale of the problem in their country, they also have a really interesting way of looking at a potential solution. And this idea, and you've probably seen this before, the idea of purpose, but they go one step further and call it a reason for being, is the combination of all these things. So this is for the way that we sort of look at work. This is the utopian model of like work. I'll share these slides with you tomorrow, so you can download all these images and graphics. But this is a combination of things that you love doing, things you're good at, things you can get paid for. Is key, because if otherwise it's just a hobby. And what does the world need? This is a really interesting question, because if you're doing something that you love, you're good at, and you can get paid for it, you might feel like there's something still missing. Trying to just in your mind right now, plot yourself on this image, and then think about in which direction you would like to move. Ideally towards the center, but where do you think you are and where would you like to go? Because that will start to help you think about the questions you want to ask. Okay, so what's changing? What are the trends that are influencing the change in the world of work? Well, opportunities, there are more than ever. So at Escape the City, we started just by having a meetup of people who wanted to do something different, who wanted to get out of the jobs or the careers they're in and do something different. And we found there was a lot of other people who were in this situation as well. And so in the last 7 years, we've helped over 8,000 what we would describe progressive organizations, so entrepreneurial, people are doing things differently, working in different parts of the world, recruit 16,000 people through our community and our site. And so every Monday morning, we send out a newsletter that says, here are the top 10 most exciting opportunities that we found this week, and then we have hundreds more on our website as well. And so these opportunities are being defined by what success looks like to individuals rather than to society as a whole, and that's what's interesting. So there's a lot more opportunities. You've probably heard this, remote work, and this sort of work from home, which basically in some fields people see as like, well, I'm not really working, I'm just staying at home for the day. But this is becoming real, and there's an article out this morning that said, for a younger generation, if the employee the employer does not actually provide remote work or flexible working hours and days and offices as an option, then they're much, much less likely to apply for that role. So the idea of going to a desk, working 9 to 5 for a lot more people is going to be a thing of the past. Traditional offices are not going to be there for much longer. And social reach, perhaps the biggest shift in terms of technology, is not just the automation of many roles, which means that creativity and empathy and multitasking and resilience and a lot of the soft skills that you probably have an advantage over many people in society with are going to become more important, but actually who you work with is now a choice that you have. In terms of not just people within your community, but looking around the whole world, projects that you're curious about, missions that you're interested in, sectors that you might be curious about, AI, 3D printing, all this stuff that's popping up and growing really fast. You can connect with these problems and issues and communities and businesses really quickly now. It doesn't guarantee you're going to have a job next week with them, but you can certainly connect with them and you can start having conversations. So this is really exciting. But it takes something. So how do we do it and how do we help? So we've helped 300,000 people over the last 7 years. Those are the people that signed up to Escape the City. And we help them with opportunities, with tools, with tactics, which Skye is going to share a few with you now. And we also run a school here in London. So we've helped 1,000 people escape into new, exciting careers, a lot in startups, a lot in entrepreneurship, but also into fast-growing and impact-type organizations. And this is our mission. We want to help as many people as possible find work that matters to them. And this is the key bit here, and this is the center of it all. It's like, what does success in career and actually in life look like to you? And this is a big, quite hairy existential question, which is easy to shy away from, but it is really important. Here are some of the people that we've helped, some of our, as well as Paul and Vic, some of our escape heroes So you've got Deepak, who's now he set up something called Oddbox, which is a wonky fruit and veg delivery service. So he's tackling the problem of food waste and turning it into a business opportunity. Adela is delivering high-end fashion boxes to women who want to who dress differently but don't want to have time to go out and do all the shopping. These two guys at the end have started something which is a storage company for people with empty spaces. So think Airbnb, but for storage. It's called Stashby. Pippa here. Some of you might eat Pippa nuts, nut butter. Has anyone, like sites like people get addicted to this stuff? It's basically high-end peanut butter without palm oil, and it's amazing, and it's got all sorts of amazing things in it. Anyway, Pippa's built this in 3 or 4 years, and it's remarkably successful. Sony's set up a online service for art dealers where you can match people's living room walls with art, and Armin has started Vitamin Buddy, which is a online subscription service for vitamins for people's health needs. So these are just a snapshot of some of the people who we've worked with and supported start their own businesses, and it's not all just individual businesses. And this is what we're hearing from people. So we out of that 300,000 people, we learn a lot. We gather a lot of data. And this is the big sort of key lessons that come out of it. Number one, the old way of defining success was around security, financial security and growth in terms of skills. Those are the two things that most people we talk to said, that's how I used to define success. How people want to define success now is that basically they're more greedy. They want to have security, they want growth in terms of their skills, but they also want to feel like their work is having a positive impact on the world. Think back to the Japanese circles. And they also want to have more autonomy, choice about where they work, who they work with, how they work. Can they go out and play in the snow with their kids if it's snowing, as opposed to go to that meeting? Have they got the flexibility to do that? If not, why not? And well-being. And so mental and physical well-being, as you know, is becoming a much bigger discussion, especially mental well-being in society. And this is becoming a metric of how people make decisions about jobs. Maybe this isn't surprising, but actually putting this into practice is challenging, and this is what we help people do. So a few more stats for you. Over half of professionals we speak to experience some kind of mental or physical health issues as a result of their work, and that's one of their main reasons they want to change. Half would like to start their own businesses, so there's a strong sense of entrepreneurship running through the people we work with. And that doesn't just mean they want to start necessarily and work for themselves. It means they want to have more entrepreneurial experience in their career, which may be within a bigger organization. 64% want to have more social impact. This is the number one thing that we hear over and over again, is like, I don't feel like my current work is serving a purpose, a core purpose or value in the world. Now, this may be very different in this community that we're in today, but actually it's still a really important factor for many people. And a lot of people just want more purpose. Why am I doing this? Why am I getting up in the morning? Is it secure, but is it also solving a real problem in the world? Then afterwards, after making this transition, twice they're as likely to feel like they're making a positive impact. A lot more are feeling happy and healthy, and autonomy is the big upside of all of this. They feel like I've got more control over my future and how I work. In terms of the graph, so there's those 6 factors plotted before they escape and after they escape, and they're all going up. And you think, okay, they're all going up except one. And you think, well, the trade-off must be money here, right? It must be that I'm just going to get paid a lot less if I'm going to have more freedom, more impact, more creativity, more of all these things. I'm going to trade off money. And that line probably looks like it's going down, but it's actually flatlining. So what's interesting, and this is perception, is like, how do people feel about their financial security after they've made this transition? And the answer in terms of our community is that they don't feel like it's changed. It's not improved, but it's not got worse. They feel the same with their financial security. So that's something we obviously need to work on and help people more with. But it's interesting that it's not a trade-off explicitly. So this is our story. This is where we've got to. We're on a mission to try and wake people up to the fact that there are more opportunities out there, that you can define success on your own terms. And then by doing that, the positive impact on society will be significant, and we can start to do this at scale. So we've helped a few people so far. We want to help a lot more, and we'd love to help you. So Skye is here to come and tell us how you can do it. Skye, come and join us. How to escape.
Sorry, I got stuck in traffic.
All All right. I take those.
Hi everyone, I'm Skye. I run the Escape School with Ben, and I also teach the Career Change Accelerator, which helps people to find what they want to do, and also to get it, because it's quite difficult to, first of all, we're not taught how to change our careers. We're taught if we do everything right, we go to school, we do well, we go to university, or whatever it is that we do, and then we'll be set for life and we retire at 50. That's not really how it works. Ben was sharing earlier, the likelihood is that we'll be having probably 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 careers in our lifetime, and so that's what we do, is try to help people. So I wanted to share some of the secrets to successful career change. So I've worked with thousands of people, tried to help them to change their careers, and there are a few things, there are a lot of things. Normally my program that I do is 10 weeks, so I'm going to try to make it 10 minutes for you. A little brief snapshot, we'll try. But the 3 things are, sorry, I also have a cold, defining success for yourself, adopting new mindsets, and then taking action. So the first part is what's important to you. So we talked about these aspects of what we identified as being 21st century career ingredients. So they'll look familiar: growth, contribution, ownership, engagement, security, and health. These are all things that we've identified as being really important to people now, as Ben mentioned, but this is just a little bit more detail. Now, most people don't really think about these things or ever write down what's more important to me than other things, and that's part of the problem, because there are so many opportunities. Like Ben said, at any given time we have 1,000 job opportunities on our website. How do you know which one you want to go for? Maybe that sounds good, maybe that sounds less good, you just don't know. So what we ask people to do, and I've brought a worksheet for you guys if you're interested, is to really think about what's most important to you. Because there will always be trade-offs, no matter what you do, so it's understanding what you're willing to trade off. So I've got these little graphs for you to be able to do later if you want to really pick out what's important to you, because then this forms a bit of a compass, right? You can look at a job opportunity and see, is this going to give me maximum health benefits? Am I going to have, is financial security more important to me? Is this going to pay me more? Is this going to pay me less? What actually is important to me? Because most of us don't really think about these things. We just think, oh, I want to have this much salary, I want to be able to work from home one day, or whatever it is that is your criteria, but actually thinking about the actual role, what does that look like? So if you're not sure where you want to go, if you have no idea what you want to do, then this can become a part of a framework for you to use to assess opportunities with. And people find this very useful if you take some time to really think about what you're willing to trade and what you're not willing to trade. And then there's something that we call a good career criteria. So again, I brought a worksheet if you guys would like to use it, which is basically any opportunity that I pursue must, ... and then you would have 2 or 3 or 4 things that it has to tick the boxes for you. Now this should be a mix of aspirational and practical things. So any opportunity that I pursue I should be challenged every single day in different ways. I want to be working around people who are challenging the status quo, who are doing interesting things, who make me feel like a small fish in a big pond. And also I need to be able to make X amount of money per month or per year so that I can live the kind of lifestyle that I want. Right, so that's my good career criteria. Everybody's will be different, but it's worth thinking about what yours are, so that when opportunities fall across your lap, you think, right, is this ticking my boxes? Yes or no? It makes it much, much easier if that's the way that you're using some kind of tool to assess opportunities. So using that compass and then having some kind of criteria just makes it's like a decision-making criteria. It makes it a lot easier. So this is what your sheet looks like if you want it. I made that. The second thing is adopting new mindsets. Now, it probably won't be unfamiliar to you with the work that you've done, but there are 3 mindsets that we see as being fundamental to people being able to make successful change and also being successful in their career. The first one is a hustle mindset. Now, what is the hustle? What's hustle mean? Anybody? No? Okay, that's fine, I'll tell you. So this is what a hustler is. So charlatans all talk, no work. A martyr does all the work and never talks about it, and a hustler is both. This is really important because most people really struggle with the sharing aspect, because there's an adverse reaction, people thinking that you're boastful or thinking that you are cocky or arrogant, whatever that might be. But if you are doing the work and talking about it, people will find you. And also that's very appealing as an employer. So we find people who hustle make really good opportunities happen for themselves. And there are 3 traits as part of being a hustler, a 21st century hustler. Some of you might think that it's a bad thing, which historically I think being a hustler has been. Sorry, I didn't have my mic on. And that's creating value, sharing, and then building authentic relationships. So creating value is just it's not waiting for people to tell you what to do. It is just creating something for the sake of it. So it could be doing free work, especially if you're thinking about you don't know what you want to do, but you want to test something. Doing free work, giving ideas away, creating something just for the sake of it because you think this should exist. So if anybody's heard of the People's Fridge, have you ever heard of the People's Fridge? There are fridges popping up all over the UK, which are where I could take leftover produce or whatever that I had in my fridge that I'm going to go on a holiday, and I could take it and put it in there, and somebody who needed it could come and take it. Right? That was started by a couple of people who just thought this should exist. This is something that should exist. Nobody told them to do it. They just did it. And creating that kind of value actually creates more opportunities for you. And it's also very attractive from an employer perspective, because if you're going out there and you're making things happen and you're doing things, that shows that you're self-motivated. You're creative, you're innovative, all things that are really attractive for any employer. So some ideas. And if you guys want more of this, I've got loads of resources on this stuff I'm happy to share. So giving ideas away, unnecessary creation, so just creating for the sake of it. There's something called the briefcase technique, which I won't go into right now. And then just doing free work. So that's how I got my job at Skye. I found them on Twitter, and I tweeted them and said, I'd love to help. I did a sponsorship proposal for them to open something called the Escape School, and they managed to get the money. I did some free work for them, and now here I am, 4 years later, doing the work that I do. I never would have expected that to turn into something, but by providing value and actually just doing something because I wanted to, it showed that I was somebody that they wanted to work with. And I could decide the level at which I wanted to come in at. So when I was hired by Escape, there was no job advert going. But they wanted me to come and work with them. And so I could decide not to go to entry level, not to go in at junior level, but actually to decide the level I wanted to go in at, which is a good tactic. If you're thinking about, I don't want to take a pay cut to do something that I actually want to do, actually creating something that people find valuable, they'll think you're more valuable than just whatever their job advert is. The second aspect of the hustle is shiny in public. It may sound a bit airy-fairy, but this is really important, and this is the part of being a hustler that I think most people find difficult, is actually proactively sharing something. So if I had never shared with Escape this sponsorship proposal I've written, I wouldn't be here. They wouldn't have known that I could do the work. I wouldn't have had any opportunities. I think a lot of times we get imposter syndrome, especially if we're doing something that we haven't done before. I mean, obviously, here I am in front of all of you. I get imposter syndrome despite the fact that I do this every week and have been doing it for years. Inviting other people to engage or participate with you. So if you put a post on Facebook or LinkedIn or wherever, whatever networks you're using, and just say, I'm looking for opportunities in X, or I'm looking to explore these 10 different areas. Does anybody know anybody? If you don't do that, people can't share the opportunities with you. So there's something called the strength of weak ties. There's a theory of weak ties, which is it's not the people that you know, but it's the people that they know that will create the most opportunities for you. So if you don't share what you're interested in, people cannot connect you with those really interesting opportunities. So this is a really important part that most people miss out. And the third thing is building authentic relationships. Right. It's not very difficult. It's just asking for help. It's helping other people. It's embracing the strength of weak ties. It's relearning how to make friends. It's relearning how we frame professional relationships. Because if you are meeting people, engaging with people, helping people out, they're more likely to refer you to other people. And so it's just saying, I would like some help, or I'm looking to help somebody with a project in food waste or in policy or whatever it might be. And that's how you can get new opportunities sent your way. Right, the second thing is a growth mindset, and this is really important. I would say this is probably the thing that sets people apart who are successful in career change and not successful. This is from Carol Dweck, who's a professor at Stanford. She identified this in a book called Mindset. So a fixed mindset is where people think skills are something you're born with. I can't get new ones. That's just how it is. Challenges, I should avoid challenges because they might reveal a lack of skill that I actually have in this area. Effort, something you do when you're not good enough, right? If you get feedback, you could take it personally, you could get really defensive about it, and then setbacks, you get discouraged, you say, I'm not going to do that again, and you blame other people. Now, growth mindset is really important, and just so you know, nobody is just one or the other. We have aspects of both. So, for example, I think of myself as being in the growth mindset most of the time, but I find feedback really difficult. So I can take it personally, and I will sometimes get defensive. So it's not fixed. You can move between both, but adopting a growth mindset is what is going to help you when you have setbacks, because you will. You'll apply for some jobs, you won't get them. Sometimes you'll get rejected. You might get laid off. These things happen, but having a growth mindset and thinking, right, I'm going to try things, I can learn anything. I really believe anybody can learn anything if they put the time in. Effort is essential because it's a path to mastery. The only reason you're good at the things you do now is because you've put a lot of effort in to learn those skills. Right? So this is something to keep in mind, and I would recommend Carol's book if you ever are interested in exploring it a bit further. The third thing is having an experimental mindset. So we tell people to think like a scientist and do experiments. If you don't know what it is you want to do, there are probably some things that you're interested in. How could you test them before you commit all in that this has to be my career, or this is the job that I want to do? You can probably break down any job into an experiment. So for example, if I thought I wanted to be a doctor, if I thought that was the next role that I wanted to do, what would be I would say, being a doctor is 100% of the vision. What would 10% be? 10% might be volunteering with ambulance service for a month, just to test it out, to see, do I like working in emergency situations? And am I any good at it? Do I like medicine? Can I stand the sight of blood? What do I feel about working in a hospital environment? All of these assumptions that we have, that I would have about being a doctor, instead of spending the next 8 years training to be a doctor, I could test that in a month. And then I would have a lot more information. What do I want to do next? You can do this with anything. If you wanted to be an innovation consultant, 10% of that would be maybe you'd pick a charity and try to come up with 3 different ways that they could make money, and then you send it to them and say, what do you think about these things? Or you can just test, do you like doing the work? What do you like, what do you not like? And that will help to inform your next steps. But it's treating it like an experiments. You have a hypothesis, you have variables that you're testing, and at the end you say, did it work, did it not work? And I think that's the point that most people don't do. They don't reflect, they just keep doing the same thing and expecting different results. Right? If you keep applying to jobs and expecting a cover letter and a CV is going to get you the perfect job, and it's not working, it's probably not going to work. Right? So you have to think, how can I think outside the box a little bit to find things that I actually want to do? Right, that's just a quote, it's not interesting. So the next part is taking action, and I think this is where most people get stuck. So we all want to think our way to a new direction, our dream career is just going to hit us in the head when we're in the shower, and we're like, that's the thing that I was supposed to do. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that, but that's what keeps most people stuck for years, for decades, for their whole career. The most important thing is to take action, but if you're thinking, okay, but I don't have a clue what it is that I want to do, we'll talk about that. So this is a book called Working Identity, and she talks about the biggest mistake that people make when trying to change their careers is to delay taking the first step until they've settled on the final destination. Now this is silly because how do you know that you like football? Probably because you've played football and you've enjoyed it, and then you play it some more, and then you get good at it. How do I know that I like doing the work that I do? I don't until I do it. And so if you wait to find out what it is going to be this thing that you're going to enjoy so much, you won't find it. You have to try stuff. You have to take action, otherwise you won't find it. It's very, very, very rare that people find things by waiting for something to come to them. And that's why just taking small steps, trying things out, being experimental, and just putting yourself out there is the way that you make these things happen for you. And it may feel uncomfortable. That's good, because most good things happen when you're uncomfortable. Right? If it feels a little bit scary, it's probably something that you should be doing, because it probably means something to you. It's probably a good opportunity. Right, so if you don't know where to start, there are some slides that I have with some dorky photos for you. So if you don't know where to start, the first place that we tell people to start is to chase their tennis balls. You probably have no idea what that means. If you have ever seen a dog that likes tennis balls, because I know not all dogs like chasing balls, but if you throw the tennis ball, it doesn't matter how tired the dog is, it will run after the ball, it will come back, and it's like the happiest thing in the world. I wish that I could be even 1% as happy as these dogs are. But we also have tennis balls. These are just things that we're interested in. So like, what are you reading about late at night when you get home? What magazines are you subscribing to? When you go to a bookstore, what section are you going to? What are the things you're always talking about? What are the conversations that you're starting? What are you sharing on Facebook? What are you sharing on LinkedIn? What are you always thinking about? We all have our own tennis balls, just things that pull us. So you could think of it as tennis ball, you could just think of things that pull you. But if you don't have any idea where to start, try challenging yourself to write down 10 tennis balls, 10 things that pull you, that you're interested in. Because the chances are that might be a good place to start if you don't know where to start at all. Right, at least exploring what that might look like to do that work. And it could be anything, because everything pays. I even saw a job the other day for somebody who's a garlic bread tester. So if that was your tennis ball, that's actually a job that somebody does. So thinking about what your tennis balls are. So what are the things that you're interested in or curious about? Okay, this is a really important place to start that we don't really think about because we think, oh, it's not practical. But lots of things pay. You can do a lot of different roles, and actually sometimes things morph into something once you get started exploring it a little bit more. The second thing is following your frustrations, right? We all have things that really bother us, whether it's people's armpits in your face on the tube, or if it's global problems, if it's homelessness, if it's mental health. I mean, it could be anything, but we all have things that really bother us. But that's actually another good place to start, because people who work on a problem that they care about feel purpose, right? You all will have experienced this, I'm sure, in the work that you've done. But if you want to continue having that sense of purpose, sometimes finding some kind of frustration or problem that you actually want to work on is the way that you can find that. Right? So it could be macro problems, it could be micro problems. It's also that discontent is the first necessity of progress, right? So most good businesses, I would argue, any good business solves a problem of some sort that enough people have that they're willing to pay somebody to do. So whether it's getting a job trying to solve the problem or starting your own business trying to solve a problem, you always want to start there, and it's a pretty good way of starting. So thinking about 10 things that really bother you is a good place to start. So what really bugs you? And the third thing is trying a 10% project. So it's like I said, experimenting. I've challenged everybody who just finished the course that I've just run to start January, 31 days. What could you do in 31 days trying a direction that you're interested in? We can all do it, just 10% of whatever a job might look like. It is a really good place to start because at least you're starting and you just need momentum. Now, a lot of people use these projects as leverage to get jobs and things that they don't have any experience in. So we have somebody that we work with, and he was a consultant, and he wanted to start working in tech. So what he did was he started a project, it's a simple website that he built for free on one of these free website makers, which just points people to loads of different tools that they can use to build websites or logos or whatever for free or very cheap. Now he used that as leverage to get a job working in a tech accelerator. He didn't have any experience in tech, traditional experience, but by using some of these projects, you can leverage them to get opportunities. And now everybody goes to him as some kind of tech wizard because he has this website that he can put on his LinkedIn, that he can showcase his ability, his skill. And one way of overcoming this challenge of people saying, oh, you don't have the experience. There's this experience trap. But if you think, oh, I don't have the experience for the role, how could you get it? Like giving yourself permission to just do it rather than waiting for it to be your job for you to do it is a really nice way of trying it. So if you don't know what you want to do, trying a 10% project. Also, if you do know what you want to do and you don't think you have experience, try a 10% project that you could then use as leverage to get a job opportunity that you're interested in. We see this working all the time. I don't know why school, they don't teach you to do this, but this is the way that people get jobs in the 21st century. So it's really important to consider, at least. I have no idea if I'm going slowly or quickly or what's happening. So the third thing is just about what's stopping you. So if you're feeling stuck, there is something called Stoicism, which is just this ancient philosophy of a way of being. And Marcus Aurelius talked about Stoicism, and he talks about what stands in the way becomes the way. So there's a book by Ryan Holiday called The Obstacle is the Way. I'll save you from reading it. It's the summary is the obstacle is the way. It does give you a lot more tactics, but that is basically the premise of it, which is if you think, I can't do this because of this reason. So I can't I can't get that job because I don't have enough money, or I can't start that business because I don't have enough money. Instead of that being a non-starter, the obstacle becomes the way. So, do you actually know how much money you need? How could you get that much money? How long would it take you to have that much money? What would that look like? Doing a financial audit of yourself and saying, actually, this is how much I would need, this is how long it would take me, and so I could do it. That becomes the roadmap to overcoming that obstacle. So I challenge myself to do this all the time. So I used to be really terrified of public speaking. About 8 or 9 months ago, I could barely stand in front of people without thinking that my heart was going to jump out of my throat. Now I do it all the time. I'm not an inspirational public speaker. I probably am not going to be the most inspirational speaker you'll ever see, but it doesn't hold me back anymore. And the only way that I overcame that was putting myself forward for talks. I started with kids because they're a lot more forgiving than adults. Doing talks to children, putting myself forward for talks for Escape, and eventually it stopped having the power over me. So the obstacle can become the way, right? And I would recommend that if you can adopt that kind of thinking, it really does help, because it means that you can never be stuck, because there's always some direction that you can go just by following whatever is blocking you from going forward. So I think we're going to hear from some other people that aren't me, which is great. But if you are interested in, I know Ben mentioned 100-Year Life, but if you're interested in some other books that are helpful for career change, for thinking a little bit about how you do things differently, Pivot is brilliant. It's a very strategic method for changing your career. It's got loads of resources. It's a very good book. I would highly recommend it. Mindset is what I was talking about, growth mindset versus fixed mindset. Designing Your Life, 2 Stanford professors, amazing book. They've helped thousands of people to change their careers and design the life that they want. And then Grit, which is actually about people in the armed forces. It starts with people in the armed forces and realizing what's the ingredients to success is resilience and passion. So if you feel like you're pretty resilient, that's great. You just need to find the passion. And so start with some of those things that I mentioned before that might be helpful to you. I've got a whole load more if you're interested, but this is just a little snapshot of my favorites that I recommend to people. Right? Vix!
You go up first.
Come on up!
Okay, good afternoon everybody. My name is Vix. 3 years ago I was sat literally where you guys are sat now. Perhaps not for this particular symposium, but I came from one of those Deloitte, this is what management consultancy kind of talks is. I spent 9 years in the Royal Air Force as an intelligence officer. I've been a civilian now for about 3.5 years. I am now an entrepreneur with Potential Light. I have a portfolio career where I work as an inclusive leadership and gender consultant. I'm a women, peace and security expert. I'm a life coach, I'm a mentor, a yoga teacher. And that was all before lunch today. So yeah, I couldn't fix on one thing that I wanted to do, so I was like, well, how can I create a way that I can do everything that I want to do? But it's not been an easy ride. I thought I would share, I've only got a couple of minutes. My story, when I'm in full flow, can take hours. I won't bore you with that. So just a couple of highlights that I think, thinking back to being in your situation a couple of years ago, what would have really helped me. So yeah, at this point 3 years ago, I tried a couple of things. I had an internship at the BBC, which was great, but hadn't turned into a proper job. I'd worked with RISI, the think tank, which again, sounded really impressive and actually was not the right thing for me at all. And so I started to narrow down what I didn't want to do, but I still didn't have a clear idea of what I did want to do. And somehow I ended up in a situation where, as a last ditch, oh my God, I have no idea what I'm going to do with my life now, I applied for the Goldman Sachs internship program that some of you may have heard of and may even have applied for, and I got offered a place on that. And at the same time, I had applied for a volunteering scheme with VSO and the opportunity to go and live and work in Bangladesh for 6 months, exactly at the same time. And I was faced with this kind of really polar opposite decision of what I was going to do next. And one of the things I've really learned, one of the things I wanted to do when I left the Air Force was to have more control over my career. I got really sick of, the phone call from the deskie going, Vix, hi, can you go to Al Udeid in 2 weeks' time for 6 months? No. I wanted more control. It's incredible, that autonomy that both Ben and Skye have talked about. It was hard. It's a really hard decision to make. So it is a little bit of a double-edged sword. Embrace it, embrace the uncertainty. In the end, I went to Bangladesh and I have not looked back since. So I think, again, reflecting what Ben and Skye have been talking about, finding the things that are really important to you and following those will really help. And remembering that career transition, wherever you're coming from, is not a single moment. You know, there'll be a day, 24 hours where, like, one moment you're Flight Lieutenant Anderton and the next minute you're just Ms., which was really strange. But it's a process, and it takes time. And the things that I was doing when I first left the Air Force look really different to the things that I'm doing now, and I'm sure they'll continue to look different if I came back here in 2 years' time. So it is a long journey, and it's made up of all these small steps that Skye has talked about. In terms of just some practical tips, and actually they very much reflect what Skye and Ben have been talking about, so go me. One of the first things I think is really important is find out what your why is, get clear on that and stick with it. It will become your lodestar when you're making choices between different things, when you feel like you're never going to be employable again. But also those times when you're faced with these incredible opportunities, you're like, do I become a banker or do I go and live without hot running water for 6 months? They will get you through those times. For me, if you're interested, my lodestar has always been that I want to be that person in my nursing home when I'm 90 going, did I tell you about that time I did? Whatever it happens to be. I want to have this life of rich and fascinating stories that I can bore my grandchildren and the other people in my nursing home with. Build meaningful relationships. All but 2 of the opportunities that I've had in the last 3.5 years have come from people that I knew, people that I got introduced to, or randomly through LinkedIn. So I know somebody's talking to you later on about branding yourself, but get on LinkedIn, use it, reach out to people. The worst thing that happens when you reach out to somebody that you don't know is that they don't reply to you. Like, you've got nothing to lose. And I've actually got jobs from just emailing people going, your company sounds really cool, can I hear more about it, please? Because people always love to talk about themselves, as you can probably tell. The third thing is identity. So start telling people what it is that you want to do, even if that feels like you're a complete fraud. I put on LinkedIn a couple of summers ago that I was a gender and security consultant. I had absolutely no basis for doing that, but that's what I wanted to be, and I wanted to start appearing in people's searches. Within a week, I'd been contacted by somebody who was looking for a gender and security consultant, and I ended up landing a really Gucci job out of it. So it does work, and really embracing that kind of that very present-minded. It's no point telling people, oh, I'm a former RAF officer. Like, that's useless, and that's not who you are anymore. That's not who you're going to be. So start embracing that new identity. Kind of fake it till you make it. Finally, all the best of luck. It's going to be an incredibly emotional journey. There'll be some real highs when it's going really well, and there'll be real nadir where, like me, you'll be like, oh my God, all I can do is apply for Goldman Sachs. Not that there's anything wrong about GS, but not really what I wanted to do. I do actually also want to end on a very quick plug. So, like I said, I'm a life coach and a mentor. I work with a lot of people in career transition, as do the guys from Escape. So if anything about my story has resonated with you, anything you want to know more about, or you want to get a bit more advice from somebody who's kind of been there and done that a little bit, then you can get in touch with me at thepracticalbalance.com. But yeah, all the best.
Right, good afternoon everybody. My name's Paul, and like Vix, I was a regular in the Navy for 16 years. I joined in '98, straight from university, and I did what I wanted to do. I actually found my passion before that. I was a meteorologist. I love weather, still do, and that's what I went and did for 8 years. So for the Dark Blue in the Ordnance, I was an HM officer, warfare officer, and then I felt and was persuaded to broaden out and became a PWO, and left at the 16-year point. I actually resigned at the pension point as an SO2, having done the PWO thing, and stopped enjoying it. Pretty varied career, as most of you will have had here, but I did stop enjoying it. I felt the work that I was doing didn't matter to me so much anymore, and also I felt I was becoming institutionalised. We all know that it's more than a job, it's actually a life in so many different ways, and I wanted to do something else. So in 2014, around about the same time as Vix, I left. Within 6 months, I'd bought a house, got engaged, signed up to and started a full-time master's degree, and become a father. And my point and my takeaway from all of that is, when you leave the military, you've had that security blanket. You might not have any autonomy over what you do, or indeed where you're going to be told to go next, or what job you're going to be doing, but actually you've still got a job, you're still being paid, and that security almost can feel as if it disappears overnight. So how do you get around that? Well, actually, you plan. We're all brilliant at planning. That's why we're officers and we get taught how to plan. Do it for your own life as well. And that 12-month transition period, I actually planned some of those life events. I always wanted to go and study. That's one of the reasons I left. And I knew I couldn't do it while I was still inside the forces. So I then did all the research. I chose the courses that I wanted to do and made a balanced choice about that degree course. And we also know that we've got a little bit of a financial security net. So don't be worried about the fact that when you stop and you take your tabs off and you're no longer a uniformed officer anymore and you become a civilian, you think, I've got to go to work on Monday. That may be the case for some of you, but actually use that time wisely, whether you're still being paid or not being paid, to explore and do all the things that Skye and Ben talked about, to do those experiments, to try and do those things. For me, it was doing that full-time year study, which I thoroughly enjoyed. It was an environmental business, and from that has spawned all sorts of different things for me. Like Vix, I suppose I have a portfolio career, but actually for the first period, I sort of retired while my partner went back to work and I became a stay-at-home dad, for want of a better term. Which is great because I won't get that time back anymore. My daughter, who's now 3, I still see her far more than most, certainly fathers, but a lot of working mothers do as well. And I think that's tremendously important. I can concentrate on the full-time 9-to-5 work when she goes to school, but for now, I really enjoy that autonomy that I've had. That said, it is a little bit scary, and you've also got to encounter the problem of, it's very easy to say, I'm a soldier, I'm a sailor, I'm in the RAF. What do you say to people? What do you say to your networks and your families and friends and those people who you meet? What's the label that you give yourself? Find a label, determine what that label is, and you do that through all that experimentation and those projects and finding that thing that you're passionate about. What I'm passionate about now is sustainability. I could bang on about this for hours, but we all know that with climate change and so on, it's going to create an enormous amount of global challenges and problems. And so I try and help solve those in my own tiny way through a variety of different things. All the things I've tried haven't worked. A lot of dead ends have come along. Some projects I've started have just come to a natural stop because I found not enough people were interested in them. I've done a bit of paid work. That came to an end as well. And so that resilience that Skye was talking about is also important too when you're doing this project, these projects and experimentation. But the value, as Vix mentioned as well, is what keeps you going. Actually, why am I doing what I'm doing? If not enough people are interested in the thing that I've tried, so be it. That's really their problem, not yours. You can go back and have a look at why it perhaps didn't work and then retry and try again. So I've sort of thoroughly enjoyed my 3 years. I'm trying to get to the centre of that 4-part Venn diagram, the Japanese one, I can't remember the word. I haven't got there yet. I've probably travelled around a little bit of it. And I still don't know. I don't know what I'm doing next week. I don't know what I'm doing in January. But that doesn't matter. Partly because of the planning, partly because of that growth mindset, which I admit I didn't have until I encountered Escape following my degree. But actually I'm in a really sort of good place, which is an airy-fairy term, of course. But I'm comfortable with what I'm doing or what I do when I wake up in the morning. And sometimes that's work, sometimes it isn't work, but actually that is really important. It does require a bit of a transition shift. It won't happen overnight. It took me a couple of years to sort of completely move away from that fixed military mindset of knowing exactly what you're doing. you've either got the work that you've got to do or you're being told what you've got to do, and that security. There are ups and downs in all of that, but use the networks that you have. Don't completely forget about the military. Obviously the RA are a good place to start, but actually still hang on to those, but use them for what you want. Don't continually look in the past. And if I want to borrow, again, Vix's analogy of sitting in the nursing home, a favourite thing that I took from Skye was the retirement party. When I do retire, when I'm 100 or 120, who's coming to that party? What are they going to talk to me about? Why they're there? What am I going to tell them about what I've done? Because I realised that leaving at 38, I needed another career, and actually I need several careers. I need to do all sorts of different things, and to just try and hark back to what I used to be doing, and to just stick doing meteorology, which I do love, but actually it's not what I want to do as paid work, and certainly not in the defence industry. Completely moved away from that. Don't be scared of doing it. Do try things, do experiment, and don't worry when it all goes wrong. And that's it from me. Thank you.